Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee with Comrades, a podcast discussing current events, theory, and action through a radical lens. What's up, y'all? Pearson here, back with yet another edition of Coffee with Comrades. This week, my pal Kevin from Turnip Radio and Open Source Farms joins me to talk about mutual aid and why it is good and we should do more of it. We also talk about the forthcoming Biden presidency, Obama being in the news again all of a sudden, and a lot more. But before we get there, a couple quick announcements. First things first, unless it escaped your notice, there should be not one, but 2 episodes of Coffee with Comrades in your podcast feed today. This episode 112, is your regularly scheduled edition of the program. But we also wanted to feature our recent collaboration with Dumb and Awful in the Coffee with Comrades feed, so you should see that as well. Definitely check out both if you haven't done so already. Just as a reminder, we are still planning on sticking to a bi-weekly schedule of Coffee with Comrades, so that means the next edition of the program will go live December 22nd, so keep those eyes peeled. Last but certainly not least, we want to extend a special thanks to our supporters on Patreon. If you dig this podcast, if you fuck with what we're saying, if anything on this program has ever been inspirational or educational to you, please consider signing up to become a monthly sustainer of Coffee with Comrades by going to www.patreon.com/Coffee with Comrades. You can subscribe today for as little as $1 a month to gain access to bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes content, you can unlock our exclusive Discord server, and even get your hands on our zine. Alright gang, I think that about does it. So without further ado, I'm pleased to present episode 112 of Coffee with Comrades, Why Not Both? Featuring Turnip Greens Radio.
You're listening to a Channel Zero Network podcast. The Channel Zero Network is a decentralized network of anarchist podcasts bringing you analysis of current events, media criticism, rebellious music, interviews with academics and authors, how-tos, and so much more.
This is The Final Straw Radio, a weekly anarchist and anti-authoritarian radio show broadcasting out of occupied Salagi land in southern Appalachia.
Hello, and welcome to Live Like the World is Dying, your podcast for what feels like the end times. I'm your host, Margaret Killjoy.
What's up, y'all? I'm Pearson, host of Coffee with Comrades.
You've been listening to Rebel Steps. I'm your host, Liz. Believe in yourself, trust one another, and get organized.
Hello, this is Linda. You're listening to Subversion 1312 on the Channel Zero Network.
Whether you are anarcho-curious or a hardened militant, CZN's ever-growing roster of programs has something for you. Head over to channelzeronetwork.com to find out more.
So how have you been? Other than the double harvest that you had to do today, which I'm sure was a fucking chore. How have you been?
Yeah, that's actually just most Wednesdays for me.
Is Wednesday like the busy day?
Yeah, well, online market pickup is Thursday mornings, so
Gotcha.
At the job, I do their harvest for them, and then when I get off work, and now it gets dark early, so I'm like trying to beat the dark so I can go harvest at our farm.
Right.
For the same online market.
Right. I heard there was like a frost that rolled through Tallahassee. I'm not there currently. Is that the case?
Yeah, it's been cold as shit the last 2 nights.
Oh, that's great. I love the cold. I'm sure the little plant buddies probably don't love the cold though.
Well, it's about time. It's a little late, but I'm ready for some of those hot weather crops that have been hanging out in my field to get out of my life. Yeah. So it's good to
they've been lingering too long. They're like the unwanted house guests that don't know when to fucking leave.
Yeah, still got a bunch of peppers, and I'm sure the tomatoes are dead as fuck out there. I didn't even look at them. But we got a bunch of greens and stuff that gets overwintered and does fine with the frost. It can like come back from it, so it's good. And we also like use frost cloth to cover some stuff that I need to keep around that is more sensitive.
Is frost cloth like a better method than like a tarp or something?
It's like lighter, so, and it also lets light through. So it's like a fabric that you just put over there, and it's not like heavy, like weighing down on your plants, like damaging stems or whatever.
That's cool.
but it is annoying as hell to deal with, because if like when you're putting it on and taking it off, you got to keep it low to the ground, or it can become this massive kite that just flies off into the wind.
Just whipping into the distance.
Yeah, it like dances in the air. I've seen it happen.
That's fucking hilarious, dude.
Yeah.
Just goodbye.
Yeah.
Sayonara.
I don't even know what to tell you we've been doing other than farming. That's pretty much my fucking life, and it seems to take up all my time. So,
well, I mean, it's a good thing that you're good at it.
Yeah.
Do you miss cooking at all?
I've been doing that too, actually, at the house. I do not miss cooking in a restaurant, because fuck that. But,
sure.
I love cooking for Jordan and myself. It's fun.
Totally.
I still get to be creative.
Yeah, totally. What's the coolest dish you've made recently?
Oh shit, too many. I mean, I didn't do Thanksgiving like a traditional meal. I just made pie and called it good on that.
Fuck
which
yeah,
was
dude.
Good.
That's the right call.
Apple pie.
That's awesome. Yeah, my partner actually made apple pie as well, but it had like apple pie and like I think blackberries in it.
Oh damn,
bro,
that's good.
Fucked. It was so good. It was so good. Yeah, it was great. Without hyperbole, I can say it was probably the best pie I've ever had. It was awesome.
That's awesome. You got a winner there.
Yes, indeed. No kidding there. No kidding there, bud. So what are we gonna talk about today?
Oh shit. Well, I wanted to ask you off the bat, did you see that regeneration article going around?
No, what's that? This? No. What is this?
There's also some Twitter drama. It's the online. I don't know if they have a physical publication, but for the Marxist Center, and it's basically, it's called Mutual Aid, a Factor of Liberalism.
Oh God. Oh God.
I didn't want to tell you before because I wanted your pure
you wanted reaction. My pure reaction. Oh my God.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
You've got to be fucking kidding me right now. Hold on, send me this article. Let's pick this thing to pieces, because now I'm angry.
Yeah.
Wait, what is thesis of this piece? What is the author contending?
So it's basically like mutual aid it's just like a band-aid for the symptoms of capitalism, and isn't like low revolutionary potential, I guess. And there are some actual okay points in it. Did you get it? I sent it to you.
Yeah. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. All right. It I don't know. It like goes through talking about the Young Lords and Black Panthers and shit like that, and then let me get the because in their tweet about it, which is what I saw people raging about online, the quote that they chose for that was pretty outrageous. Where did it go? The quote that they posted on Twitter with the link said, "If the working class does not have the shit, why is mutual aid elevated as the work? What are the impulses behind the popularity of mutual aid? Is it organizing? Is it solidarity? What do these things mean if it is not?"
Just wow, this is like 4,000 words of somebody trying to say that a good thing is actually not a good thing and that we shouldn't do it.
So at the end they kind of do the like, this was all a little clickbaity. Well, they don't say that literally, but they're basically saying that it's still like a good thing. My prescription is actually not to pack up all the service work the left does. It is instead to be honest, start building the kinds of fighting organizations the working class needs in the long run.
You know that meme. You know that meme with the little girl, the little Spanish girl? I think she's in like a soap opera, and she goes, "Why not both?"
Yeah.
Why not both? You know, I think that a lot of times, you know, the critique of mutual aid, I think if I'm at my most generous, I think comes from like a place of like genuinely wanting to see revolutionary transformation. But I think what it misses is that in order to get to the point where we can do like do a revolution, if such a thing could even happen, in order to get to that point, we're going to need people to not just be, you know, surviving, but actually like thriving and being able to support themselves and learn from one another and support one another, you know? And I don't think that these things are independent of one another, but I think that they are mutually informative, and that in order to get to the types of revolutionary struggle that can militantly combat like the state, I think that it's necessary for us to be able to look out for one another. Furthermore, I think that it's also like really important for us to practice an ethic of mutual aid, to prefigure the type of world that we want to live in, and not to wait for it to come, but to try and actually begin building the types of relationships, the type of communities, and the types of affinities that we want to actualize in a post-capitalist society. And so I think that, you know, it's foolish to simply suggest that mutual aid is liberal.
Yeah.
You know, the term was invented by a Russian prince who became an anarchist and, you know, was a scientist and a biologist. And so, you know, I think that at least the term mutual aid, right? Like human beings have been doing this, and other animals have been doing this for a long time. You know, some of my indigenous comrades point to the fact, like, before there was even mutual aid was a thing, you know, indigenous communities were doing mutual aid, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Of course. And so, like, you know, I think that, I just think I think that it's foolish to simply say that these programs are somehow helping capital or somehow just forms of charity, when, in fact, the entire purpose of them, right, is to build more resilient communities, to invite more people in, and to try and build the very types of revolutionary organizations that this person seems to be purporting that they want to build. And like I said, it's 4,000 words, so I can't read it right now while we're in the middle of this recording. But just from a cursory glance, that seems to be like this individual's argument. And like, don't get me wrong, like, you know, I'm sympathetic. You know, mutual aid alone certainly isn't going to build the type of revolutionary society that we want to see.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely.
Like, I personally want to do more, and I wish there was an outlet, but like reading this, there in like the parts where there is legitimacy to their argument that they're making is like, yeah, we do need that broader like organization in the workplace and of the working class. But I don't know where you, like, after reading this, I don't know where you want me to, what do you want me to do, or like where do you want me to go for that? Like, totally. I all I have is to go do the food aid and like food not bomb shit that we do here, and that like is our staple. And like, I want to do more than that, and I want to connect it to broader things, but like all we have right now with where we're at is those networks, and like continuing to build them.
100%. I think that, you know, Kevin, I think that one of the things that happens so often, right, is that we have this beautiful capacity for imagining, right, the type of organizing that we want to be doing, right? But instead of actually taking concrete steps to get to that point, instead we just point at all of the other people who are not doing that thing and say that they're wrong for some reason. And I don't see that as particularly like an effective way to organize. You know, like, I think that if this person instead had taken the time to spend 4,000 words saying, hey, here are the ways that we can build revolutionary organizations, right? that could be a thing that could be, I think, really beneficial. Because I think a lot of people have that question, but just, pointing at people and saying, hey, this thing that you're doing, it's okay, but it's not going to change the world, I think is just narrow-minded ultimately, and doesn't have the understanding that we are not at that point yet, right? Like we, at least here in the United States, haven't reached that level of struggle yet. Right. I would love to be at that level of struggle, but we're just not there yet. And so, doing these programs in order to keep people healthy and to keep clothes on one another's backs and to put food on each other's table, I think that these types of programs are really resilient because they allow us to spread propaganda, they allow us to radicalize people, they allow us to invite other people into organizations and get organized, right? Yeah, I don't know. I think that I think it's kind of silly to try and erase that. I saw a screenshot of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's kind of like flow chart of mutual aid that she had made for I think it was like during like right when COVID-19 kicked off. And she was,
I've seen it.
Yeah, and she was doing it with like Mariama Kamba, who's like an abolitionist and like an actual like a radical. And like like we can pick apart and problematize that chart, and we can point to the fact that like liberals have absolutely co-opted the language of mutual aid. But to me, that right. speaks to the fact that it's an effective strategy, and that it is one that is an actual threat to the ruling class. I think that, again, I haven't read the whole article, but I wouldn't be surprised if the author makes the argument at some point that like all of these systems only operate within the sphere of capital, and in order to defeat capital, we have to build systems outside of capital. But misses the reality that there are plenty of people doing mutual aid work like yourself who are, recycling seeds and growing food that are doing things outside of and against capital. And so I think that, again, trying to paint with too broad a brush and say that all mutual aid work is somehow liberal just strikes me as kind of crude and lazy.
Yeah. And like, like yourself organizing with the grad students union and stuff like that. It's like, why, like you said at the beginning, why not both? Like this, a lot of the mutual aid stuff that I'm involved in is not in the workplace. And, I think a part of this argument from this article is that like, it's like professional and managerial and like not of the working class, which is just bullshit.
Yeah, that's just not that's not true at all. That's absolutely true of like NGOs, but it's definitely not true of like actual like grassroots mutual aid work. And furthermore, like I feel like this lens, right, kind of misses the reality that like there's a whole realm of human life that exists outside of work. Like, we're really fortunate that we only spend a third of our lives at work on average. And while I think the workplace is absolutely a place that we should organize, and it's a place that I actively organize, I also, like, don't venerate the working class or fetishize the idea of work in general. Like, I want to abolish work. I don't want to fucking work. Work sucks, dude. Like, I don't want to, personally, I don't want to install a dictatorship of the proletariat. I don't want there to be a new ruling class who's just made up of the formerly working class. I want to abolish class entirely. Like that's what communism is to me, right? A classless, stateless society. Like that's to me what I'm, aspiring towards. And so, personally, again, a lot of this argument of just saying, hey, go, organize your workplace, don't do mutual aid, is again kind of reductive because, again, why not both? Like, both of those things are really great, and we should do both of them.
It's like, I don't know, that worker fetishization of like that ideal, like white dude in a factory type mindset.
It's
and
the
I know
vanguardist mindset,
I know they're not going full straw man like that, I'm not trying to put that on them that they're writing this article, but it's like it's going in that direction of those vibes, you know. It's that kind of like thought process that I think it leads to like non-productive places. Also, like, I guess when I'm thinking about this, that the only way that it would be liberal is that I can use the mutual aid work to talk to my liberal coworkers about and get them involved with shit that is more radical, and then have like a space to like bring them into something like
right,
that.
and pull them left and radicalize them and get them involved in like actual concrete organizing. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, there are plenty of liberals who I've met at Food Not Bombs, you know, shares. There are plenty of liberals that I've met doing, you know, disaster relief in the wake of hurricanes. There's plenty of liberals that I've met when we were organizing for COVID-19 relief. You know, I think that to simply suggest that, you know, mutual aid is going to devolve to liberalism or some, you know, expression of liberalism, I think is a disservice to a really rich tradition that has saved and improved lives.
Agreed. So that's probably enough of focusing on something that doesn't need more of our attention.
Holy smokes.
On the topic of mutual aid, what have you been involved with recently? Is Capital City Mutual Aid still active?
Yeah, we sure are. Capital City Mutual Aid is still active. Live Oak Radical Ecology is really active right now, which has been awesome. Our mutual friend, my housemate, Adrian, a lot of folks have been working on some lore stuff. We just had a discussion with them on our podcast, and I know that you spoke with Adrian on Turnip Greens Radio not long ago. What's more, I've been fortunate enough to work on helping start a Food Not Bombs chapter here in Indiana, where I'm currently visiting my partner. Awesome. She's really interested. She and a couple comrades up here are really interested in trying to start up a Food Not Bombs chapter, and so we went out to Indianapolis and chatted with those folks and talked about like kind of their process and like what the kind of conditions are here in the state of Indiana. Interestingly enough, in Indianapolis, there is a bill that's meant to essentially penalize and criminalize homelessness, which is like wild. And I can't remember what the proposal is. We went to a like a what's the word I'm looking for? It was like a rally. It wasn't really a direct action, but it was like a couple of speakers and people organizing. People were doing mutual aid, and you know, handing out food and getting people housing and trying to get people clothed because it was very cold. And you know, people were talking about this particular proposal in the Indianapolis City Legislature that's trying to essentially, you know, make it a crime to help people who are in need without like the proper permits. You know, it's this sort of liberal mindset that like as long as you have the proper permit, we want to keep people safe. Which is really just like this sort of neoliberal bait and switch because they're trying to quote unquote beautify the city, right, and get all of these unsavory, unhoused folks out of the light so that the nice gentrifiers and business types and capitalists can come in and sell their wares without having to look upon or be besmirched by the houseless population here in Indiana. Interestingly enough, there are I think 4 times the amount of empty housing that there are houseless folks in the city of Indianapolis, which is just like mind-boggling, right? You know, capitalism, the most efficient distribution of resources, of course. So I've been doing a little bit of work with that here in Indiana. But you know, honestly, Kevin, if we're being perfectly honest, like, haven't been doing as much as I would like to. It's been kind of a weird season with COVID-19, with being kind of away from my community up here, visiting my partner off and on over the last couple of months. But I have nothing but good things to say about the folks that are back in Tallahassee doing really great work.
Well, I'm glad you're taking care of yourself and your partner and family. That's good.
Yeah, totally. I think you know, one of the like most important lessons I think I've learned from doing community organizing over the years, right, is that every now and then you got to take a step back and breathe, or else you're gonna burn the fuck out, and then you can't be of service to anyone, right? Like an empty cup can't fill another.
For sure. And once again, shout out to our friend Adrian. When they were on Turnip Greens Radio, we were talking about mutual aid and how important it is to just give people a base of like comfort and security in their life.
100%.
And like, you can't do much organizing or effective actions if you don't have those very basic needs met.
Yeah, like if your belly's empty, it's not like you're going to go out and organize, right? Like you're not going to organize your workplace if you're worried about you know, being able to put food on the table. But if, you know, there are community members who are willing and able to serve a free hot meal, or to make sure that your kids have shoes, or make sure that you have clothes on your back, then that's like a huge difference, you know? And I think, you know, I think in a lot of folks' like imagination, right, mutual aid is something that like is a more like top-down kind of distribution, right? Like you know, it's conceptualized as this charity. It's conceptualized as this hierarchical thing, instead of the actual like reality of it, of a mutual exchange, of a give and a take, and a proliferation and a collaborative creation of new opportunities, and swapping of skills, swapping of knowledge, swapping of material goods that can benefit people's lives in some way, shape, or form. And so, like, again, not to circle back, but if people are like really you know, on one about mutual aid, perhaps you should go out and do a little bit and see what it's actually like before writing a 4,000 word article on the subject. But I digress.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just strange to me, because from my perspective, like, I'm broke, I work for a wage, I do have my own farm, but it's on my comrades' free land that I give them food for. I do the mutual aid work that I do because it's all I can afford to do. It's my skill set. It's like what I know and can share with people. And like, it's a part of my work that I do, that like I have extra food. So like, of course I'm going to like share that with people that need that thing. And like, I couldn't do some sort of like top down charity style, like I'm gonna buy all this shit and like hand it out to the like less fortunate in my community. I couldn't do that because like I just have like, the only thing I have extra of that I can share is food, and like I have to be a part of that. And like, sometimes I need like aid in other ways, and it's like that mutual give and take among people that makes it what it is and makes it like super important. So it's just really bizarre, like from that perspective, to think that someone else is interpreting it as something that it's not entirely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's really unfortunate that you know, we have this almost like this I guess like this attempt to kind of dismiss different types of organizing without actually grappling with them or doing them ourselves. And I think that the left would be much better off if instead of just, you know, ridiculing or dismissing something, we can see instead how these things are mutually beneficial and complementary and can edify one another and empower one another and allow us to become stronger together. And that different people have different skill sets, and different people have different backgrounds and different lived experiences, and that those things are healthy and useful, and that we should cultivate those things and champion those things and see how they can be reconciled together, not dismissed or cast aside as unimportant or, dare I say, liberal.
Liberal. Let's put some effects on that one. Yeah, and like going back, God, we just keep circling back on this thing.
Well, it's just so easy to dunk on when you're this silly online. You're just giving us free content, so I'm gonna shamelessly keep dunking on you.
Like, I do want to organize farm workers, but like that doesn't. The unions are broke here. Like, there isn't a farm workers like union in Florida that exists like in this region for people. There's groups like Coalition of Immokalee Workers that like does some good work and like supports workers where they need to, and it's like that stopgap, that like band-aid in place of not having a union and the unions being crushed over decades. But like it's like you said, we're not there yet. I would want to build that here, but like I can't start that shit on my own, you know. Like I wouldn't know how, or it's just like the movement isn't to that point yet to rebuild those things that have been like broken for a long time.
Yeah, 100%. I do just think it's worthwhile to like point out that, like, thanks in no small part to like the triumph of neoliberalism, unions have been totally like defanged and declawed, de-radicalized, demilitarized. Militarized is not the right word, but they lack militancy, you know. We've seen some like really encouraging like changes recently through various kind of black cat strikes, whether it's teacher strikes, exactly, whether it's people organizing, like my friends in No Evil Foods. Of course, that was like a failed venture, but it was still like a very militant one and a very outspoken one, and one that they're still fighting and waging to this day. And so, like, I think that like. I know, dude. It's so fucked. I don't even get me started. Oh God, Birdie still tags me and shit on there all the time, and I always appreciate it because I'm always like, yeah, like it's really encouraging to see, people still, sticking it to the bosses. But on the same time, I just get so fucking angry, and I'm just like, oh. It's funny though. Speaking of No Evil Foods, I was just talking to Working Class History's John about potentially collaborating, and he was like, oh yeah, we listened to this podcast, really like this episode, blah blah blah. Anyways, I digress. My point is that like unions, right, have the unfortunate track record of being, not that effective in actually halting neoliberalism. And so, again, I think, it's important that those in glass houses shouldn't cast stones, right? And that, instead of saying and dismissing one thing as totally defunct, instead finding ways that we can synthesize, right? And think about these things dialectically as mutually informative in order to constitute a new level of struggle.
Yeah, for sure.
So
it was effective at a certain time for doing what it did, but it couldn't keep up with the newer like neoliberal order stuff, and there needs to be like new forms and
exactly. And I think in many ways, like the riot is one of those like forms and methods of struggle that I think has been able to resist the codification that like unionizing efforts have fallen into, and potentially like mutual aid efforts could fall into, because again, these things could be co-opted by liberals. But I do think that there is a possibility, right? Which, God, I don't even want to think about mutual aid getting co-opted, but it could happen.
Right? I was thinking about a riot being co-opted by liberals.
Can you imagine what that would look like, dude?
I can't. I'm struggling.
That's why it's so funny. It's just
hilariously contradictory.
Yeah, totally. There's I think his name's Joshua Clover. He has a book called Riot, Strike, Riot that essentially like makes the argument that like we are going to continue to see riots in the years ahead, and that we should celebrate and champion riots and participate in them because they are active modes of struggle and of freedom. We had a good conversation with Vicky Osterwheel, if you want to check that out, if your listeners want to check that out, about her book, In Defense of Looting, which is great.
Okay.
Highly
on
recommend.
Coffee with Comrades.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So if folks are interested in, the practice and the implementation of riots, that was a fun conversation to have. So shouts
also
out to
with
Vicky.
With what's been happening in France. I don't know if you've been paying attention to that. Them throwing down in the streets.
Yeah, and they're
right
already
now.
like repealed the proposed bill. It's almost like riots work. It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Oh yeah. 100%. So started talking a little bit about neoliberal stuff. So let's talk about neoliberal stuff.
Let's do it.
Fucking Biden.
The question is, what is more neoliberal than President-elect Joseph Biden? I'm hard pressed to think of anything. Maybe Barack Obama. That's a pretty close second.
I honestly think that Biden would be the better figurehead for neoliberalism.
Yeah, why is that?
It's more about the institutions and the people around him that are going to be making decisions more so than the single figurehead, I feel like. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that in a good way.
No. The cabal of capital, the apparatus of the state will continue on with or without its senile high priest.
I definitely think, oh man, Obama coming out with his fucking bullshit on defund the police.
Oof.
Dude, and then the last time he came out with some shit was with breaking the NBA
strike, calling LeBron James and telling him that he should single-handedly stop the fucking strike.
Bro, it is insane. How do people not see? It's just straight up right in front of our faces. He comes out when he's like, now don't go on that strike now, and then coming out for against defund the police, now don't
well, it's just funny too because his whole idea, right, is that you shouldn't use snappy language like defund the police. This is the hope and change guy, right? The empty platitudes guy. The difference, right, between defund the police and hope and change is that defund the police is an actual policy position, whereas hope and change are just banal, buzzwords that don't actually, are totally inoperable in any material way. And so, it's silly in the extreme for Obama to propose that somehow defund the police is quote unquote snappy when this is the guy who's change we can believe in. Fuck all the way off, dude.
It's silly when you take it seriously, but I know for a fact that Obama is a cynical actor and that he's using this specifically. He's saying don't use sloganeering like defund the police because it's turns people off or whatever. He's saying that specifically to get a certain percentage of people to ignore those things. And, it's his push against it. He knows it's bullshit because of what you just said. He's a smart guy. He's a political actor who has knows how to get his hands on the wheel of power. So he knows what slogans can do in their power. and how he's used them for his own purposes. So he's just, in my opinion, he's basically just telling a certain group of people that are going to hear that and be like, oh, okay, like I'm not going to advocate for defunding the police anymore. Him continuing to do the legacy thing, I guess, in a certain way, whereas like he knows that he's going to be viewed poorly in his presidency in the future. So, and he knows that even like saying things like him saying this about defund the police will be looked upon negatively in history. But I think that he's still saying them now because he thinks that it can be this technical argument where he's like, no, I'm talking about like strategy and tactics. I'm not saying don't do the thing. He's focusing intentionally on like saying, no, you're doing it wrong, instead of like coming out and like explicitly saying I'm against defunding the police, you know?
Yeah, that's an interesting analysis. And I think there may be some merit to it. I think I kind of approach it from a different vector, though, where to me it's just indicative of the long-standing trend of liberals punching left, you know, and sort of trying to use, I think, popular language in order to get people elected and to push for electoral victories, while simultaneously not actually delivering on anything tangible, and using the left as a punching bag, both to show to some fictionalized, mythical white suburbia that you know they're not the radicals, that they're not the actual socialists and communists that the Republicans are calling them. When in reality, right, like things like defund the police are actually really popular, right? Especially when you explain it to people, like, you know, we're going to take this money that we use to defund the police and we're going to create social programs. We are going to fund education. We are going to, take away all of your college debt. Like, these things are really, really popular. And I think that the reason why they're popular is because they actually are real material things that would have a dramatic impact on people's lives. And the liberal establishment, the Democrats, the capital D Democrats, have a vested interest in allowing the status quo to remain as is, because they benefit immensely from being the quote-unquote underdog as they soak up millions and millions in lobbyist dollars to do fuck all to actually help poor and working people.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that he knows how popular it is? Someone like Obama, is he? I think he does.
I think he
too. Understands that, and he's doing the co-opting thing.
I think he's doing the co-opting thing as well, but I think, what I think he's doing it intentionally, though, is, whether or not he's doing, I think he does absolutely recognize that it's popular. Now, whether or not he recognizes that he is intentionally acting in his own class interests or not is another question, which I don't think really matters ultimately, because he is acting in the interest of the ruling class, right? By propagating the notion that defund the police is some sort of radical proposal, which, I mean, in many ways, it is, right? It's coming from radicals like ourselves who are creating this type of language and are demanding it in the streets. But really, when you break it down, right, defund the police is not really a radical thing any more than defunding the military is a radical thing. And in many ways, it's a really rational thing, because you look at how bloated our police budgets are, how bloated our military budget is, and you look at all the litany of funded social services, and you recognize that, oh wait, we're vastly outspending ourselves on people who employ violence rather than on programs that actually educate or feed or home or uplift people. And so, I think that it's not a really radical proposal, but I think what Obama is doing in a very intentional way is taking that language, right, and pushing it aside so that the Democrats, the capital D Democrats, can continue to carry out the neoliberal paradigm that has been in order since the fall of the USSR, right? That this sort of mantra of capitalist realism, the Thatcherite idea that there is no alternative to capitalism and that it must continue apace. In many ways, like, part of me wonders whether Obama like actually was like an idealist before he got into like the like highest halls of power. But again, it also really doesn't matter. Like that's really just a kind of a a hypothetical question that like doesn't actually change the fact that he's serving the interests of the ruling class in every way possible.
Yeah, I know we're not focusing specifically on this, but from what I've heard from people in Chicago, he was always making cynical power moves from the very beginning.
Oh, well, there you go.
And but whatever. Did
you hear that Biden is trying to get Rahm Emanuel and Neera Tanden in his fucking cabinet?
Yeah, insane.
That's some galaxy brain shit right there, my guy.
Yeah. I mean, these are all part of why I think Biden's the perfect neoliberal administration.
Yeah. Do you think that we'll continue to see under a Biden administration? Do you think, again, this is conjecture, but it's interesting. It makes for an interesting conversation. Right. Do you think that we'll see, a expansion of the drone program, right? Like, I mean, it started under Obama, it started under Bush, it expanded under Obama, and Donald Trump like took the reins off. Do you think that Biden will, sort of bring back the more like statesmanly kind of approach to drone warfare? Do you think we're going to see more successful coups? Because clearly Trump was totally incapable of doing a coup.
Yeah, I definitely think that like we're heading towards just increased drone warfare, like no matter who or what the fuck is happening with like U.S. politics.
Right.
I think that's like the nature of an empire, and like where we're heading with technology and our neoliberalism's response to climate change and all that shit too. I think it's gonna be very convenient for Trump to have brought the war home. I'm fearful of a more global conflict basically with Biden, and I'm fearful that like of there being a lack of anti-war and like no outcry from the libs. I definitely think that they've been trying to keep the cat in the bag with Trump there, and because I think they want to steer conflict, and I think they want everybody to, I mean, straight up, there's been, fighting amongst the ruling class. That's what we've seen with like Trump. And so I think that an empire administers war much more effectively and much more deadly when they're all on the same page, and everybody who's wants to get their cut and make their profits can do so in a clean way. And it's not just like Trump's buddies or the incompetence or like emotional response of some sort of Trump administration war making. Obviously, I agree with the whole they try to do more of the Obama strategy of using drones instead of boots on the ground or whatever, but he was doing both too. And we were doing covert shit all over Africa and the Middle East and countries that we never said we were at war with during Obama administration. So I don't know. I hope the whole Iran thing works out as well too, but
reinstituting the nuclear deal.
I don't know. Yeah, but I also don't like, from Iran's perspective, it's like, why? Like, fuck off. You guys are like,
yeah.
Why
like,
would
why?
they ever make
you're just
a deal with such
again?
yeah,
totally,
exactly.
Well, my question though is like, are we even like, can we even win a war anymore? Can we even do an imperialism? Can we even do a coup? Like, to me, it seems that like the empire is so dramatically in decay that the ruling class infighting that we are witnessing, as much as we are, because I'm sure it's going on far more intensely behind the scenes, and in channels that we're not privy to. I can't imagine personally that the era of CIA coups and America doing a good old fashioned imperialism are ahead of us. I think those golden years of espionage and murdering people and overthrowing socialist, democratically elected leaders has come and gone, and that the United States really is truly a failed state at this point. I could be wrong. Like, we could rally, and by we, I mean like the ruling class of the United States could rally.
So I would make the argument that it's taking a new form. I think that the old model of overthrowing the socialist states, kind of old Cold War style shit, is of a bygone era. And I think that within these institutions at this point, like the CIA, there are factions as well that represent those different factions of the ruling class. And I think that a lot of what happened with Trump came out of the Bush family's faction that controls a certain side of those things,
right?
And I think that like what we saw before the election and after, with certain capitalists, certain people in power turning on Trump, Fox News, we just saw AG Barr come out and basically say that like, no, there's not going to be, like, he confirmed that there hasn't been fraud to a level that could have flipped the election to Trump. I think that these are people that are brokering power behind the scenes, and there's people that we're not going to know about and their names and shit like that. I think that they have come around and made a deal with the more neoliberal side of things that is more globally connected, that is part of like the EU project, that is a part of both working with China, but then also using it as a new Cold War scapegoat. And
that's been their MO for a while now, doing the sort of pointing the finger above the table, but also passing something below the table.
For sure. They're all getting the bag together. I think Trump's in a tool in that way for like that, like Bush side of those factions, because he doesn't know that all of this shit is happening. Right. He's operating on a lower playing field than this, and they don't want that, because he could do some crazy shit with having some semblance of the reins of power in his hands, and they don't want to do a lot of the shit that they've been wanting to do for a while he's in power, because he can wield his base as a reactionary force against whatever they want to do, And so I think we're going to see a lot more of the tech and AI shit integrated into to warfare. And of course that comes home.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Yeah. And it's just going to be different, man. And especially with the COVID shit, like, I'm not trying to be Mr. New World Order and conspiracy guy, but like, and it doesn't have to be a conspiracy. It's just like, what are the tools that powerful people are going to use to deal with these new set of crises? You're not talking about the USSR anymore. You're talking about a global climate catastrophe, massive amounts of like refugees from climate and war all across the world, like the movement of people that we've never seen since capitalism was created and born,
Yeah, and I think it's worth like reiterating too, like, neither of us are being conspiratorial here or saying that like this person has a chess piece and they're moving it this way. Like, it's not like a couple of guys sitting in a smoke room with a bunch of cigars, deliberating over who's gonna have what slice of the pie. This is just the way that capital works, and I think that it's worth reiterating that, as much as we're kind of pointing at particular actors, it's more that we're trying to indicate, at least on my half, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel fairly confident that this the same holds true for you, that like, we're talking about different types of ideological positions rather than specific individuals and how those things are playing off of each other and affecting different factions within the ruling class. But it's grim, brother. It's it's fucking grim. There's there's no way around it.
My perspective would be there are men in smoke-filled rooms plotting, because that's what humans have done since the dawn of time, but that they're using systems to plot and wield power. There's like systemic reasons that and we have to like analyze and recognize those things. It's not like it's not like you recognize and point to the cabal and then your problems are solved. You still have this whole apparatus of power that spans the globe that you have to dismantle. And also there's not just like one smoke-filled room with the bad guys in it. There's families, there's factions, there's capitalists that want more than the other capitalists, there's levels to this shit, man.
There's levels to this shit, man. Holy fuck. Well, is there a way for us to kind of, maybe conclude on a more hopeful or optimistic note? I feel like we've been two sourpusses today.
Oh, no. I mean, we're just being real. I wanted real quick, like the short version. What's your opinion on like how do movements deal with like the Biden administration and like the differences we were kind of outlining there? Is there like a different approach or methods to any of it?
That's an interesting question. I hadn't considered it before. I like that question. My gut is to say that like, and this might be almost idealistic, but my gut is to say that like, under Obama, we saw a lot of the same things that we saw under Trump. Like, yeah, Trump was more belligerent about it and more like openly bellicose. But Obama like deported way more people than Trump did. Obama separated families. The apparatus that we saw under Donald Trump that was heightened was delivered unto him by Obama. Black Lives Matter birthed under Barack Obama. I think that in many ways, like, whatever particular figurehead sits behind the desk at the Oval Office is insignificant next to the grinding reality that is late-stage capitalism. and that unless we begin to combat these intersectional issues of patriarchy and heteronormativity and white supremacy and capital and heteronormativity, etc., until we begin to recognize that these things are deeply, intricately interlinked, and begin to organize around them in a way that invites the most people to participate and to be active, self-directed, self-motivated individuals within a larger framework of a community struggling to try and make the world better, we're not going to actually get much done. And so, like, it doesn't really matter who is sitting behind the desk at the Oval Office, because I think ultimately our goals should remain the same. You know, we should build our communities. We should reach out to one another. We should organize in our workplaces. We should organize in our housing units, like with other tenants. We should do mutual aid projects. We should garden or farm. We should practice community defense and become proficient with firearms. We should all learn how to do medical like aid, you know, and do a tourniquet, be able to provide emergency first aid response. You know, I think these are skills that we really need to be cultivating actively, because, you know, ultimately I don't see the capitalist class making the decision to avert the worst of climate change. You know, to me it seems that they are far more content to simply drive this whole doomed experiment off of a cliff and make as much fucking money as they possibly can in the short term. I don't think it is within the framework of a capitalist's mindset. I could be wrong, right? Like, it's entirely possible that you know, the systems of capital could course correct in order to combat climate change, and even do so like pretty effectively. Certainly not as effectively as like a mass movement towards socialism, but like,
well, I think that would be called eco-fascism.
Yeah, I mean,
capitalism can course correct.
Exactly, and that's not, for the record, I don't think that's fucking a course correction. I think that's veering in an even worse direction.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I don't know. To me, it's just it's building autonomy, building dual power, and trying to make ourselves as individuals in our neighborhoods and our communities as resilient as possible, so that we can reach out to one another, confederate, and work together to become resilient for the multifold crises that lie ahead. You know, to me, it's just we got to keep doing what we've been doing, because we're doing pretty fucking well, all things considered. You know, it's been a tough year. It's been a real tough year, yeah, brother, but like, it's been really fucking encouraging seeing all the incredible stuff that people have been able to do together over this past year, and it has been a source of honestly endless inspiration.
Amen to that. And it looks like we won't be getting a second COVID stimulus check, according to recent news. So we gotta keep doing this mutual aid thing, take care of each other.
No, dude, we need to stop doing the mutual aid stuff. In fact, that's just liberal. What we need to do instead
that's liberal
bullshit. We just need to organize our workplaces. Just forget about the fact that, you know, tons of people have been laid off and don't actually have a workplace. You know, it's fine. We don't need mutual aid. We just need to organize our workplaces.
Yeah, we gotta take care of each other.
Yeah, that's all we got.
There's have some coffee with comrades. Have some tea with your community.
Shit, yeah, my guy.
Left unity, you know, tea and bean water together.
Bean water. That's left unity if I've ever heard it.
Yeah. All right. What do you want to plug?
Well, before we part ways, we should definitely plug each other's shit, because I'm sure we'll release this simultaneously, hopefully.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sick. So you want to go first?
Yeah. My podcast is Turnip Greens Radio. Find it where podcasts are found. you can find me on Patreon too. I do bonus episodes that are a little more involved with farming stuff, and
they're delightful. I'm a patron. It's good shit.
Thank you. And that's about it. Our farm is Open Source Farm, which you can check out at opensourcefarm.net. My wife and I make herbal teas. If you're into that thing, check it out for the holidays.
They're super yummy. I highly recommend. I'm not just saying that because I am friends with Kevin and Jordan. I actually think they're tea fucks. So get some. It's a good holiday gift for your particular loved one.
Oh, God.
This episode of Coffee with Comrades brought to you in part by Open Source Farms.
Don't do it.
Oh my God. Anyway, my name is Pearson. I host the podcast Coffee with Comrades. You can check it out wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, the Apple Podcast Store, etc. We also are on Patreon, patreon.com/Coffee with Comrades. We're on Twitter and Instagram, that whole thing. So come hang out. Always fun to hear from new listeners and new comrades.
Love your show. I love you. Thanks for
I love your show and I love you. I'm so glad that we could collaborate again. It's always always a good time shooting the shit with you, brother.
Me too.
Regardless, give June a good kiss on the head for me. Some pets and treats. Tell Jordan and I say hi. And next time I'm in Tallahassee and things are not as fucking dire as they are in the midst of a fucking pandemic, maybe we should hang out.
Yeah, hit me up.
For sure, brother. All right, be well.
You too, man.
Solidarity.
Peace.
And that about does it for this week's episode of Coffee with Comrades. This is an entirely DIY show run by workers for workers. If you like what you hear, you can follow us on Twitter at CoffeeWComrades and Instagram at CoffeeWithComrades. Check out our website, www.coffeewithcomrades.com, and sign up to support our work with a monthly contribution by going to www.patreon.com/coffeewithcomrades. You can find Coffee with Comrades on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you go to get your anti-capitalist propaganda. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. While you're there, smashing that subscribe button, be sure to rate and review the show as well to help us increase our reach. If you have feedback, criticism, or you'd just like to get in touch with us, shoot us an email at coffeewithcomrades@gmail.com. Until next time, stay wild out there, comrades.
Sleeping deep in the hurricane, I face in the arms.
it's worth pointing out too that like unions have been, in large part. What does that sound? Oh, it's a kitten. It's scratching. I was like, what on earth is that sound? Hold on, I'm gonna go grab a kitten real quick. Hold on one sec.
All right, no problem.